The first thing I always tell people is that mountains don't try to kill you. They just don't care if you die. I learned that lesson the hard way. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 46 years old, and for most of my life, I've been a mountaineer. Not the flashy kind that posts summit selfies online, but the kind that spends weeks alone in cold silence, chasing ridgelines and glaciers because something deep inside refuses to stay in the comfort of cities. Mountains had always been my escape. But one afternoon on a remote Alaskan glacier, the mountains reminded me how quickly that escape can turn into a fight for survival. It started quietly, too quietly. The morning had been clear when I left my small alpine camp, a lonely patch of orange fabric sitting between jagged black rocks and an endless field of cracked blue ice. The glacier stretched out like frozen waves under a pale sky. The air smelled clean, almost empty, the way high wilderness often smells. No trees, no soil, just cold stone and ancient ice. I remember the sound of my crampons biting into the glacier as I walked. Crunch, 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 each step echoing faintly through the frozen valley. The temperature was just below freezing, and a thin wind dragged ribbons of snow across the ice like ghosts. I had planned a simple route that day: traverse the glacier, climb a broken ridge, and scout a line toward a smaller unnamed peak. Nothing extreme, just another day in the mountains. I had been moving for maybe 3 hours when the weather shifted. Clouds rolled in from the west, slow at first, then thicker. The bright white world around me dimmed into dull gray. Visibility dropped. The glacier, which had looked smooth from a distance, suddenly revealed its true nature: deep cracks, jagged crevasses, hidden bridges of fragile snow. I slowed down. Experience teaches you patience in places like that, but patience isn't always enough. I remember stepping forward and hearing a sound that instantly froze my blood: a hollow whump. The snow beneath my left foot collapsed. Before my brain even processed what was happening, the ground disappeared under me, and suddenly I was falling. The world spun into blue darkness as the glacier swallowed me whole. My rope snapped tight against my harness, yanking the air out of my lungs as I slammed into the icy wall of a crevasse. Pain exploded through my shoulder. For a moment, everything was silent except my own breathing echoing through the frozen shaft. I hung there, suspended about 15 feet down in a narrow crack of glowing blue ice. Above me, the sky looked like a thin slice of gray light. Below me, nothing. Just darkness descending into the glacier's depths. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I forced myself to breathe slowly. Panic is the fastest way to die in situations like that. Okay, I whispered to myself. Think. My rope had caught on a buried ice anchor I had placed earlier while crossing a suspicious section of snow. That one decision probably saved my life. But hanging in a crevasse is only the beginning of the problem. Getting out is the real challenge. My shoulder screamed every time I moved, but I managed to brace my boots against the ice walls and slowly climb the rope using my ascenders. It took nearly 20 minutes to haul myself back up to the surface. By the time I crawled onto solid ice again, my arms were shaking and my breath came out in ragged clouds. I lay there for a while staring at the gray sky. The glacier was silent again, but something had changed. The fall had torn my backpack open against the ice wall. My food bag had split, scattering energy bars and dried meat across the snow. I sighed and started gathering everything, and that's when I saw the tracks. They weren't there earlier. Large impressions in the snow, fresh, deep, four-toed clawed. My stomach tightened immediately. Bear tracks, and not small ones. Up in the Arctic ranges, you rarely see them on glaciers, but when food is scarce, bears travel long distances, especially brown bears. I scanned the valley slowly. At first, I saw nothing, just snow, ice gray clouds. Then I heard something. A low sound carried faintly through the wind, a heavy crunch. My head snapped toward a rocky ridge about 200 yards away. At first, it was just a shadow moving between black stones. Then the shape stepped into the open. The bear was enormous. Thick brown fur darkened with melting snow, a massive hump over its shoulders. Its head swung slowly from side to side as it sniffed the air. And then it looked straight at me. Even from that distance, I could feel the moment our eyes met. Every survival instinct in my body screamed at once. Don't run. Running triggers a chase response in bears. Instead, I slowly stood up, making myself look bigger. The bear watched. Then it started walking toward me. Not running, just walking. Slow, heavy, purposeful. Each step crushing the snow with dull thuds. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I reached slowly for the bear spray clipped to my harness. Easy, I whispered to myself. The wind shifted, and suddenly the bear's entire posture changed. Its head lifted. It sniffed again, longer this time. Then it let out a deep guttural growl that vibrated across the glacier. The sound went straight through my chest. This bear had smelled the food scattered around me, and now I was standing between it and an easy meal. I backed away slowly, trying to give it space, but the bear didn't stop. It kept coming. The distance shrank from 200 yards to 100 to 50. Now I could see the wet shine of its nose, the yellow stains on its massive teeth as it opened its mouth and huffed loudly. My hands were shaking as I pulled the safety tab off the bear spray. 30 yards, 20. That's when the bear suddenly charged. Everything exploded into motion. The quiet glacier turned into chaos. The bear's roar ripped through the air as it barreled toward me, snow flying beneath its paws. It moved unbelievably fast for something that big. My brain screamed now. I aimed the spray and fired. A bright orange cloud blasted outward. Just as the bear closed the final distance, the wind carried the capsaicin mist straight into its face. The bear slammed to a stop barely 10 feet away. It roared an enraged, choking sound and shook its head violently. But it didn't run. Instead, it swiped blindly forward. One massive paw caught my leg. The force knocked me completely off my feet. Pain exploded through my thigh as claws ripped through my outer pants. I scrambled backward across the ice, spraying again. The bear thrashed, coughing and snarling, its eyes watering from the spray. That was my chance. I grabbed one of the scattered food bags and hurled it as far as I could down the glacier. The bag burst open midair, scattering dried meat across the snow. For a terrifying moment, the bear hesitated. Then instinct won. It turned away from me and lunged toward the food. I didn't waste a second. I grabbed my torn pack and limped toward the rocky ridge behind me as fast as my nindi, my injured leg, would allow. My lungs burned. My heart pounded so violently I thought I might black out. Behind me, I could hear the bear ripping into the food, snorting and growling. But bears don't stay distracted forever. By the time I reached the rocks, my entire body was shaking. I climbed onto a narrow ledge about 10 feet above the glacier surface and wedged myself between two boulders. Minutes passed. Then I heard it. Heavy footsteps again. The bear had finished the food, and it was looking for the rest. I held my breath. The bear moved across the glacier below me, sniffing the snow where I had stood earlier. It passed within 20 feet of the rocks where I hid. From that distance, I could smell it. A strong, musky odor mixed with wet fur and meat. My muscles cramped from staying perfectly still. The bear sniffed the air for what felt like forever. Then finally, slowly, it turned and wandered down the Glacier Valley. I stayed there another hour before I even dared move. When I finally climbed down, the glacier felt different, colder, more hostile. My leg was bleeding, but not deeply. The claws had cut through fabric and skin, but thankfully they hadn't hit muscle. I packed what gear I had left and started the long journey back toward camp. Every shadow made my heart jump. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. But I made it. By nightfall, I was back inside my tent, stitching the tear in my leg and staring at the flickering flame of my small stove. That night, I didn't sleep much, not because of pain, but because I kept replaying the moment the bear charged, the speed, the power, the raw instinct of something that has ruled wilderness for thousands of years. And the truth is, I survived because of preparation and a little luck. The rope that stopped my fall, the bear spray within reach, the decision not to run. Mountains are beautiful, but they're honest places. Out there, survival isn't about strength or bravery. It's about respect. Respect for the terrain, respect for the animals that live there, and respect for the thin line between life and death. Because sometimes that line is just 10 feet and a cloud of bear spray.